In a quiet town nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, there lived a boy named Alex. He was no ordinary child. At just 12 years old, his curiosity about how things worked, how machines functioned, and how the brain sent signals to the body was insatiable. He loved to take things apart, figure them out, and put them back together in a way that made them better than before. His room was filled with gadgets, wires, and books stacked so high they almost reached the ceiling. His mind was always racing with ideas, but none as big as his latest one, an idea that would change the world forever. One sunny afternoon, while fiddling with an old radio and some spare computer parts, a thought struck him like lightning. What if he could connect his brain directly to a machine? What if he could control a computer, a robot, or even a car just by thinking about it? No mouse, no keyboard, no hands, just pure thought. Alex's heart raced with excitement. He spent the next few days sketching out diagrams, reading about brain waves, and researching how signals in the brain could be turned into commands for machines. His mind brimmed with possibilities. He envisioned people with disabilities, unable to move or speak, finally able to communicate again. He saw people who couldn't walk being able to control robotic arms or even entire vehicles. His invention could change lives. It was a brilliant, magical idea, and he was determined to make it a reality. But there was a problem. He was just a kid. How could he build something so complex? He didn't have access to fancy labs or advanced technology, but Alex was never one to give up easily. He gathered every piece of electronic equipment he could find, took apart old computers, salvaged parts from broken toys, and borrowed books from the town library on neuroscience and robotics. His room soon resembled a miniature laboratory. He worked day and night, his fingers moving as fast as his thoughts. Weeks passed, then months, and finally, one evening, Alex sat in front of his creation, a small headband-like device connected to a computer. It was the Mind-Machine Interface, or MMI for short. He slipped the device onto his head, his heart thudding in his chest. If it worked, it would be the first of its kind. If it didn't, well, he'd just keep trying. He closed his eyes and thought about the computer screen in front of him. He imagined moving the cursor across the screen, focusing all his energy on it. And then, it moved. The cursor, as if by magic, slid from one side of the screen to the other. His hands hadn't touched the mouse. His thoughts had done that. Alex gasped in excitement. It worked. The Mind-Machine Interface worked. For the next few weeks, Alex refined his invention, making it smoother, faster, and more responsive. He began testing it on different machines, controlling toy cars, switching on lights, even opening and closing doors. He felt invincible, like a wizard who had unlocked a new kind of magic, the magic of the mind. News spread in the town about Alex's invention. Scientists, engineers, and even doctors were amazed. They called it a breakthrough in technology. But for Alex, it was more than just a machine. It was hope. One day, Alex's teacher, Mrs. Thompson, brought a visitor to his house. Her name was Sarah, a young girl from their school who had been in an accident a year ago. She was unable to move her arms or legs and had been confined to a wheelchair. Mrs. Thompson told Alex about how Sarah was a brilliant artist before the accident, but now she couldn't even hold a pencil. The thought weighed heavily on Alex. What good was all his brilliance if it couldn't help people like Sarah? That night, Alex stayed up thinking, what if the mind-machine interface could give Sarah her independence back? What if she could control a robotic arm, or even draw again, just by thinking about it? The idea gave him a renewed sense of purpose. Alex invited Sarah and Mrs. Thompson back to his house the next day. He explained the device to Sarah, and though she was hesitant at first, she agreed to try it. Sarah placed the headband on her head, her face a mix of fear and hope. Alex set up the robotic arm he had been working on for weeks. Just think about moving the arm, Alex said gently. Imagine it lifting, like you used to lift your hand to draw. Sarah closed her eyes, her face tightening in concentration. For a long moment, nothing happened. The room was filled with tension. Then, slowly, the robotic arm began to lift. Sarah's eyes snapped open in disbelief. She moved the arm again, this time more fluidly. She smiled, a radiant, joyful smile, and tears welled up in her eyes. Alex could feel a lump in his throat. He had done it. He had given someone their freedom back. But as the weeks went on, and Alex's invention began to gain more attention, he started to face questions he hadn't anticipated. The media wanted to know more about the mind-machine interface, and soon, large companies started knocking on his door. They wanted to buy his technology, offering him more money than he could ever imagine. But with the attention came concerns, too. One evening, Alex's parents sat him down. They had been reading articles about the ethical implications of brain-machine interfaces. Alex, his mother said gently, this technology could be misused. What if someone tried to control someone else's mind? What if people lost their privacy? What if companies used it to manipulate thoughts? These questions swirled in Alex's head. He hadn't thought about that before. The same device that gave people like Sarah hope could also be dangerous. What if someone hacked into the system and controlled people's thoughts? The possibilities, both good and bad, were endless. One night, as Alex lay in bed, unable to sleep, he had a strange dream. In it, he saw two paths in front of him. One path led to a future where his invention was used to help millions of people, those with disabilities, the elderly, and those in need. But the other path was darker. It showed a world where people had lost control of their own thoughts, where governments and corporations used the mind-machine interface to control and spy on people. It was a world of fear and oppression. When he woke up, Alex felt a knot in his stomach. He knew he had to make a decision. He could sell his invention and let others take control of it. Or he could find a way to make sure it was used responsibly, to protect people's freedom and privacy. The next morning, Alex went to his computer and typed up a set of guidelines. These guidelines would ensure that the mind-machine interface could only be used for good. He wrote about encryption, user consent, and safeguards against hacking. He included clauses that would make it illegal to use the technology without a person's permission. It was his way of protecting the world from the darker side of his invention. When the companies came back, offering him even more money, Alex showed them the guidelines. Some of them agreed, but others weren't happy. They wanted full control, no restrictions. Alex stood his ground. He refused to sell his invention to anyone who wouldn't follow the ethical rules he had set. It wasn't easy. He turned down offers that could have made him rich beyond his wildest dreams. But Alex knew he had done the right thing. He had created something magical, something that could change the world for the better. But with great power came great responsibility. As the years went on, the mind-machine interface became a tool for good. People with disabilities regained their independence. Artists like Sarah began creating again, and the elderly found new ways to interact with the world around them. Alex continued to improve the technology, always keeping ethics and humanity at the forefront of his work. One day, when Alex was much older, he looked back on his journey. He realized that the greatest invention wasn't just the technology itself. It was the decision to use it wisely, to protect people's freedom, and to ensure that magic didn't turn into a curse. And so, Alex's legacy wasn't just one of brilliance, it was one of heart.